Hi everyone, how are you doing today? There's a conversation going on around BookTube about why are certain types of stories or certain types of books valued more than others. So maybe that's different kinds of ways of telling a story, maybe that's different mediums of artistic expression, or in this case, ways of telling a story. And I saw this over on Heather's channel, so I'll link to her video on this in the description. But what I wanted to do here is share my thoughts on a novelization that I read a few years ago, and kind of, I guess, to the point of saying that, you know what, I think novelizations can be really good, and I think that we shouldn't, look down on them, and I think they have a place. So let me explain my experience with Pan's Labyrinth. First of all, I had heard of the movie in my Spanish class. I think we watched like the introduction of it in Spanish, and it was really intriguing to me. I love fairy tales, and I know that it's been compared to Alice in Wonderland, so that appealed to me as well. I looked up the story online and I realized I probably wouldn't be watching it. It sounded a bit too violent for me. I'm pretty squeamish when it comes to movies. I can read about some pretty grim stuff, and I do, but movies, I just don't enjoy watching anything very, very grim at all. So, I thought, why don't I get the novelization and try it? So, that way I don't have to watch this R-rated film, and yet I can potentially enjoy the story, assuming the novelization is good. So this book was written by young adult author Cornelia Funke. I think she's the author of the Inkheart series. Don't quote me on that. And then also the movie's director Guillermo del Toro. They collaborated to write this novelization. So what is it about? And I really categorized it as a dystopian book, a dystopian story, because even though it's a somewhat historically based novel, it really does carry some of the tropes of dystopian fiction. Pan's Labyrinth is set in real-world Franco's Spain, which, if you don't know anything about Franco's Spain, kind of got some similarities to Nazi Germany. In both novels, that is Pan's Labyrinth and 1984, the sense of being watched, of being victim to your overlord's whims and paranoia, and finding a double meaning in the few close relationships you have, overwhelm the reader with a claustrophobic dread that evil is winning and may always win. So that was kind of the vibe I was getting from Pan's Labyrinth and reminded of in 1984. And I'm not one who likes, horror or scary stories just for the thrill of it. So I always look for something else to focus on or to analyze. I've read quite a few dystopian works over the years: Lord of the World, Lord of the Flies, We, of course 1984, Brave New World. I've read quite a few of the major works in that genre. And so, I was looking for something in Pan's Labyrinth that in particular would make the violence and these dark themes kind of worthwhile for me personally. So maybe learning a lesson from it, gaining some, some thoughts about character and perseverance. I wanted to see some presence or possibility of, hope or salvation. So, I don't know. Those were just some things that I was hoping to get out of Pan's Labyrinth. So what was it like? There's really two stories going on in this book. One is the quest of the Fawn to find the Underworld King's long-lost daughter who vanished many years ago, following her fatal curiosity about the overworld. I'm just reading my synopsis here. So, second is the plight of poor Ophelia, a bookish child whose widowed mother, Carmen, marries Captain Vidal, the father of her forthcoming son and one of the most sadistic officers serving under General Funke. Carmen's naive hope is that love will conquer all and that Vidal will accept Ophelia as his daughter. Ophelia knows better, knows that Vidal is a heartless wolf just like the monsters in the stories she reads. The faun gives Ophelia a chance to escape the terrible life awaiting her, but she must do everything he says and face other less human monsters in the forest. So, going back to the violence topic again, this book was rated for grades 6 through 9. So in America, that's like ages 12 through 15-ish, something like that. But I thought that this book was pretty traumatizing. It covers a lot of killings and tortures by this Vidal, and there's just lots of mention of blood, and it's not terribly subtle. There's other brutalities mentioned, like rape and cannibalism, not depicted but alluded to. And I thought that was a bit, maybe too much. There's also a lot of magic in this book, but you're not going to find a particular system to it. It's more of the magic that you find in a fairy tale, right? It doesn't necessarily make sense the whole time. So you're not going to, like, if you're looking for logic there or clear-cut magic, you may be disappointed. This book, however, did leave quite an impression on me. I didn't rate it very highly at the time. This was in, let's see, what year was this? This was 2019, and I only gave it like 1.5 stars, and really was kind of repulsed by a lot of the violence. But what I will say is that this is a story that deeply touched me when I read it. I cried a couple of times watching these characters and seeing what they were going through in this cruel world they lived in. And I think that there was a huge message of despair in this book, actually, which really bothered me. So the hope was not really there. But I will say the story has left a deep impression on me, and my point of making this video is just that. I think even though this is a novelization, they did such a good job that though I didn't even really like the book when I read it, like I didn't rate it very highly, nonetheless, it's one of those stories I'll think about every so often, and not even the plot or even details of the plot, because I can't remember any. I'm sorry, like there's not much I can remember about details, but just the little girl character Ophelia and the feelings that you have through her in the book, those things were pretty long lasting. And I also remember vividly kind of this, I guess, just the vibe of the book, if that makes sense. Like, maybe not to the extent if I had watched the film, but it's a place, They succeeded in making a place in this book that you remember and you are a little bit haunted by. So I'd say that's a successful novelization, and maybe if someday I can get over my squeamishness, I might watch the movie. I've heard good things about it. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think there's any need to automatically write something off because it's a novelization or because, it's not high literature or, whatever. Nor would I automatically rate something highly because it's considered to be a great classic or, it was assigned reading in college or whatever. Like, I just think that, there's certain thresholds that one expects certain types of books and media to have, but that doesn't mean that even if the book has those things, that it makes for a good story or that it will leave any impression on you. This novelization of Pan's Labyrinth has come to mind far more times than other novels I've read since then. And I think it's a tribute to just, that the story has a great deal of resonance emotionally, and that in spite of its flaws, the novelization was very skilled. So that's all I'm going to say. Let me know in the comments what you think about this topic, whether you've enjoyed Pan's Labyrinth, if you've encountered it in book or film, and what do you think of novelizations? I actually think I have a couple more on my list. I know I have Snow White and the Huntsman on there, which is kind of, I don't know, a little amusing. But you know what? I'm not going to diss it till I've tried it, and I'm intrigued to read it at some point. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.